Welcome to the DPS 101 podcast. This is the podcast version of the DPS 101 Community Leadership course, which gives members of our community a chance to learn directly from cabinet-level leaders in Denver Public Schools. They get a behind-the-scenes look at how a massive school district operates, as well as a lesson in leadership. I'm Nicole Brady, Communications and Community Engagement Manager for DPS, and my guest for today, episode 5, is Trena Marsal, the Chief of Operations for DPS. Thank you so much for being here, Trena.
Thank you. Thank you.
You oversee quite a team here of over 2,000 employees in different departments, and we'll get to all of that. But one of the goals of the DPS 101 leadership course is to let the community know about the leaders in DPS and get to know them. So tell us a little bit about your background, your history with not only DPS, but kind of how you came here to begin with.
I have a very long, exciting history with Denver Public Schools. I actually began my career with a small environmental firm. I was doing double duty. So I had my own firm, and I also worked for a local environmental firm in Westminster. I had a project that was actually at Denver Public Schools, and this was all the way back in 1998.
Okay.
And through that project, so I was all over. I had a small child. I was in Wyoming, Fort Collins, and I met an individual here at Denver Public Schools. He said, how about you come and work for Denver Public Schools? An opportunity to settle in, to pursue my passions. I love children. And I interviewed. It was actually originally a temporary bond position. I was only supposed to be with DPS for 4 years under the bond. And 26 years later, I'm still here.
Wow. Now you mentioned in an environmental firm. So
Yes.
in that industry, in construction, in project development, and things like that, that's a very male-dominated industry. Tell us what that was like.
It still is a very male-dominated industry. In my role as Chief Operating Officer, it's also very male-dominated. Within Denver Public Schools, I'm the first Black female Chief COO within the district.
So it's great that you are setting an example, hopefully, for many future leaders in DPS.
I think it's very encouraging. So one of my passions is to ensure that the students within Denver Public Schools see female leaders that actually look like them, that can also help them pursue their passions.
You get to be in front of a lot of students because you, like I said, you wear a lot of hats in the Department of Operations, the Office of Operations. You oversee, as I mentioned, over 2,000 employees in different departments. And some of these are the biggest, most important departments in DPS. So give us an overview, Trena, of what the Office of Operations oversees.
So one, I wanted to highlight that we are the largest landowner next to the city and county of Denver.
Wow.
And Office of Operation has the opportunity to manage those 16 million square feet of facilities. I think we have close to 1,200 acres across Denver Public Schools. And so quite a tremendous task. We have close to 2,400 leaders that serve within the Office of Operations within the various departments. So I want to first highlight our climate and safety. So one of our main focus is ensure that students are safe and that our buildings are welcome. So within our climate and safety office, we have bullying prevention, we have patrol officers, we have CSOs that are stationed at each school. We have dedicated individuals to train leaders as well as our students, as well as our staff. So we want to ensure that our buildings are safe, that our community feels welcome, that our students feel welcome. They manage the camera systems throughout the district, conduct audits of our buildings to ensure our infrastructure is safe. So various leaders within Department of Climate and Safety, around 140 team members that serve within that area.
Department.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys had a lot of additions in the past year of vestibules to schools, so operations overseeing some even physical changes to make schools safe and welcoming.
Yes, definitely.
Transportation is another big one that operations oversees. Again, how many, maybe you're going to quiz me a little, but I know that one of the things you do during the in-person sessions of DPS 101 is ask some trivia. So how many miles does DPS cover in a year, those drivers?
I'm going to pivot to you. How
Okay.
many miles do you think DPS transportation travels in a year?
I feel like I talked to Albert Zamora, the head of transportation, about this once. Let's see, 2 million miles? Am I
close?
Am I?
You're very close. 1.8 million miles a year transporting students. And so I asked this question as well at our in-person DPS 101. And we did have an individual that was close.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's
was he as
large
close
number
as
of
me?
miles. He was not as close as you.
Okay.
I think you might have cheated.
Like I said, I've interviewed Albert, but again, this is such an important department. I mean, you and I, before we started taping today, we were just talking about planning for snow days or inclement weather, things like that. Running those buses, making sure students get to and from school safely. And managing all of that is a huge job.
It's a huge job. And the first person that our students may see in the morning as they're traveling to school is our bus driver. And so we want to make sure that they're greeted, that they feel welcome, even as they approach the bus.
I love that because it shows how transportation ties back into the education students are getting every day from the second they get on that bus.
Definitely. We've also implemented technology within the Department of Transportation. We have QR codes so that parents can know when students get on and off the bus. So there's a parent app. We have GPS tracking. So we want to make sure that we're held accountable for safety on our buses, that we have the most efficient, effective routings to school, that we can reroute, making sure our kids are delivered on time for their learning.
You know, it's interesting you point that out. I think probably your department is one that sees some of the most consistent changes in technology and innovations that you have to keep track of. So we can certainly talk more about that too. Let's move into the next department you want to mention, facility management, another department you oversee.
Yes, I mentioned the acreage that's managed across the district. So when you arrive at school, parents in the community, the first thing you see is our grounds. You know, grounds of our buildings, even before you walk through the door. So our facility management department, they're managing all aspects of those facilities, those buildings. We have 16 million square feet of facilities.
Wow.
We have, there's 26,000 assets that have been identified within those buildings. That's the boilers, the chillers. That's the motors that are within the buildings, the grounds with the grass and the landscaping. All of those are things that are managed within my department.
Wow.
Ensuring that buildings are safe. The doors, when you arrive, the locks are working. Safety is key. It's also making sure that corrective maintenance is performed. These are billion-dollar assets. Yeah. Taxpayer dollars have been invested, and we want to make sure that we're using those dollars wisely, that we have trained staff that can respond to emergencies, breakdowns, that we're also proactive. Mm-hmm. We've implemented preventative maintenance programs, predictive maintenance programs, and in that regard, we're also using technology within our buildings.
And lots of air conditioning now because we got some of that approved in the bond, so that's another great aspect of managing those facilities, I'm sure.
Yes, and I have another quiz for you.
Oh, okay.
So when we think about maintaining our buildings, what's our oldest building within the district?
I did not study for this one. Oldest building in the entire district? Let's see. Gosh, I don't know. That's a good question. I know we have some really old schools, but some of them moved around a little bit.
Can you guess the year?
1900.
You're close. Our oldest building is Dora Moore, built in 1889.
Wow. Wow.
So you can imagine the average age of our facilities is 55 years.
Okay.
And so you can imagine the tremendous job that our maintenance team must perform in order to keep these buildings operating.
Absolutely.
Each and every day.
Yeah. Things certainly were different even 55 years ago, let alone 100. So.
Yes. And our staff completes over 27,000 work orders a year.
Wow. So I think one of the next areas we want to get into that you oversee is construction and planning.
Planning, design,
and construction. Mm-hmm. That goes hand in hand with maintaining facilities, but here we get to talk about new projects and expansions.
New projects, and I just wanted to go back to when I started with the district. And so one of the roles that I was originally in, well, I started out in the environmental section, but then I moved into as the chief of maintenance engineering. And within that role, my responsibility was to help to put together standards. How are our buildings designed? How are our buildings constructed? We were building 100-year buildings. We want to make sure that we're using quality materials. And then again, if our taxpayers are investing in our buildings, we want to make sure that our buildings can sustain that test of time.
Yeah.
I mean, we have students in our buildings. They have to operate every day. What type of boilers are we installing? So this is not just any type of asset. And so as we look at planning, design, and construction, we've transitioned into, we have a team that coordinates with facilities, our quality assurance, quality management team. And they look at our standards. So they've taken that direction as well. What type of buildings are we constructing that's most economical, but also that meets the needs of our kids today? That we have 21st century facilities that meets needs of all kids. They're culturally relevant to our students and the way students learn. Also, the Office of Operations, one of our primary goals is to ensure that we're supporting teaching and learning. So we're not just here as a tactical team, we're a very strategic team. Yes. We work with our academic teams, with the Office of Schools to ensure buildings aren't just built to stand for maintenance and that they're operable and maintainable, but also that these buildings reflect our students across the district. That when they walk in, that they see the care, that they do feel safe and welcome walking into these buildings. But again, that they can see themselves within these buildings.
A couple of the major projects you've overseen in recent years would have been the whole new Montbello High School and the Responsive Arts and STEAM Academy, RASA. Both those buildings are absolutely beautiful buildings, but I see what you're saying, built very intentionally as well for students and their education there.
And I like to mention, so our RASA building was the first all-electric building.
Wow.
And so as we think about innovations, the future, energy management, RASA is one of our flagship buildings along with Montbello. And for anyone that has not visited either one of those buildings, would love to take them on a tour of those buildings. I am very, very proud. Proud of our team, proud of the designs, proud of the community also that gave voice into those designs.
Wonderful. Let's keep on the sustainability aspect for a minute, because you do oversee the Department of Sustainability and Operations. Sustainability goes hand in hand with some of that project design that you mentioned, but it also comes into the classroom. Our students in DPS are getting a sustainability education. Is that right?
That is correct. I actually wanted to go through kind of our climate action plan, which was actually a student-led initiative. We have 6 different areas that we're focused on within that climate action plan. So transportation. Of course, we look at our yellow fleet, our white fleet, and our commuter. So we have electric buses that we're actually bringing into the district. We have 25 electric buses that'll be delivered actually this summer.
That's amazing.
Possibly this spring, I'm knocking on wood, and that will be put on the road that's transporting our students. That will help us to be more efficient as gas prices rise and looking at electric vehicles. Our built environment, so when we think about how we build our building, I mentioned RASA and electrification. One of our goals is to electrify 80% of our heating load for 10 buildings just through the bond program. The building envelope, ensuring that it's energy efficient. Design standards, smart buildings. When also part of my role within maintenance engineering was to develop smart buildings that we can control centrally, which helps us manage staff. Instead of executing staff to respond to an emergency, we can actually troubleshoot from our centralized location, which helps us as well. And renewables and grounds. And so all of those things are part of the program. We have resource management, energy management, water conservation. We have social development, community engagement. So there's a number of our projects within sustainability that are focused on our partnerships across the district. Eco School certification, wellness. We have gardens. We have 2 farms. And I'll touch on that when we get to our enterprise management and nutrition services, but that's a partnership within our Office of Operations as well across sustainability and enterprise management. Then you mentioned career and curriculum and students. 100% of students or schools have at least one annual sustainability project-based learning. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to embed sustainability into their learning. I mean, the beauty is that students can learn at school, but they can also transition into their homes, into their families. How do we conserve? How do we recycle? Become more energy efficient within our home environments as well.
Yeah, I've been out to a lot of the gardens at schools in DPS. That is such a great way to get some real learning happening right there. You know,
Exactly.
I've seen gardeners showing students how to trim plants or weed, how to water more efficiently and responsibly. These are things I'm paying attention to when I watch these classes, and things I never learned as a student.
Yes. And when we think of technology, we do have smart metering, managing if you have an irrigation system that's not working properly so that we're not wasting water. And so those are things. A building that we constructed, I'm thinking of the year, but it's Evie Dennis campus. We actually have a kiosk within Evie Dennis campus where you can actually physically see the energy usage. So that can also be incorporated within the learnings within a science program or physics program within the school.
That's amazing.
And career exploration across any of our teams is also key. How to become a engineer, whether it's within our sustainability department or within our planning, design, and construction team.
Again, amazing that sustainability is just one of the departments you oversee. Another one that matters so much to every DPS student and employee is the Department of Technology Services, or DOTS. I mean, I might have an answer if you have a question about how many Chromebooks DPS manages, because I did a story on that. But I don't know what your trivia question might be for this one. Tell us about DOTS.
I think I'm going to try to find one that you may not know, because I've mentioned technology numerous times because I think technology is key. But it's safety and security and how all of our teams kind of link. How many security cameras? Because the Department of Technology also supports all of the camera infrastructure across the district. How many cameras do we have across the district?
Oh my gosh. Okay, just thinking of schools, couple hundred schools, cameras, 1,000.
5,579 security cameras.
Wow.
Managed by our Department of Technology. I'll tell you the answer on the Chromebook. So we have 121,435 Chromebooks as well for our students.
Yeah. And I have been to the place where they fix the ones that get broken and come back. So it is quite a visual to see all those Chromebooks. But I mean, this is an important part of learning, having technology that works. It's an important part of working. So that's such a massively important department.
It's very important, but there's also aspects of the department that others may not be aware of. So with all of this technology, with student data, our Department of Technology makes sure that student data is secure. So that's a key function. We have cybersecurity function within our Department of Technology, so ensuring it stays protected. With the many software the applications that there are across the district, they manage and also review those software applications to ensure that our network stays secure.
As I was saying earlier, there's always advancements in technology. That's something DOTS has to stay on top of.
Definitely. We are exploring virtual reality, alternate reality, big one across the country, AI, ensuring that, one, we can implement AI, but that also our students are safe as we implement AI. Quantum computing is also a big offering, and having partnerships, even with our Emily Griffith campus and others, to ensure that we can bring those advanced technologies and even a career path to our students. Academic grading, those are things that others may not understand, that DOTS help support, academic grading and how we move into our next year. Transportation routing is a big one. So our Department of Technology stays busy.
Yeah. Okay. Way beyond just going down onto the floor every so often when my laptop is having a glitch, right?
Much more than that. But keeping our district running as well.
Hats off to them, because they're an important team, and they're so friendly and helpful though too. So enterprise management is another department within operations, and you alluded to this earlier. Nutrition services is part of that. DPS feeds so many children in a given day.
Yes. Nutrition is key. Nutrition and serving quality meals to our students every day. We have over 400 staff members that support our students in the lunchrooms. We have breakfast before the bell. We have breakfast in the classroom. We have breakfast after the bell. And so there's all sorts of snack programs that we've implemented within our buildings as well. There's another point that our community and our staff may not be aware of. So we're funded based on student participation in our programs. And so we're consistently ensuring that our meals are quality meals. We will this upcoming year have more surveys with our students. We want to make sure that they are enjoying the food so that they will participate. Thinking about innovations in meal services, how can we transition from, just the regular meals, yet meeting those USDA standards, but provide, what is it that kids enjoy when they walk into those lunchrooms and into our kitchens?
And you mentioned the farms, which are not just an educational tool for our students, but they actually are growing food for the kids.
Yes, so we are focused on seed to table within our farms and also our greenhouse. So the food that we produce on our farms and in our greenhouse, we actually serve within our kitchens. And so we have a qualified dietitians on staff that ensure that the products that we use are safe, that they're quality, we're not using pesticides. And so ensuring that those are green products and seed to table.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any quiz for me on that topic?
How many quality meals do we serve?
Okay. In a day, a year?
In a year.
In a year. Okay. That's going to be a lot. 90,000 students in the district. Not all of them eat lunch at school or breakfast every day, but I'm going to say 10 million.
We serve 11 million. You were close.
Oh,
I think you're cheating.
I really didn't.
We serve 11 million meals a year.
Yes, I haven't gotten all of them right. So, but 11 million meals in a year at DPS. That is incredible.
An upcoming initiative that I'm really excited about, again, I mentioned that we strive to ensure that our students are enjoying the meals. And we know that people have different tastes. And so we are planning a tasting this upcoming. And I offered this at the DPS 101 is for some volunteers to participate in the tasting, help us to improve our menu, to give us insights into the food that we're serving. And so I think that may be a good opportunity for...
I would love to be invited to observe or as a judge and taste some of the food DPS offers. Thank you for doing that. And
we have brigade chefs that was brought into the district through a grant. And so those brigade chefs teach our staff how to perform scratch cooking. Wow. So we're also using this product for scratch cooking in our kitchens.
Amazing. It's far cry from what I remember being served in my high school lunchroom back in the day, and I ate a bagel every day for lunch. So that's awesome. And finally, the service level agreements. That's another sector that you oversee, one that I don't think people are as familiar with.
Yes. So data is critical, and to ensure how we're performing across our various teams. So it's not just performing the service, but it's ensuring that we're held accountable to the service, that we have targets that we are setting every year, and that we meet those targets. For an example, when we're responding to a work task, we need to ensure that our customers have commitments from us on, what can I expect in the level of service that you're performing? So service level agreements incorporates key performance indicators. We will commit to completing these tasks within, 5 days, 30 days, and based on the level of importance. For an example, an emergency work task is immediately. Okay. And so if there's a power outage, if there's a water main break, a water outage, then my teams are there and that our customers can expect immediate response. If it's a routine work task, because we're limited on staffing, that may be a 30-day or 45-day response, but we have to prioritize within the work that we're executing. And so it's service level agreements, and I'll add in key performance indicators are the metrics that we use and the data that we use to measure our team's performance. I'm very proud that 2 weeks ago, we hosted our first operations data mine. And so the operations data mine, similar to the school's data mine, looks at our performance data and I won't say we put them, we made them to sit there like Shark Tank, but we did bring in the leaders of the various teams. They presented on their performance, their key performance indicators, their SLAs, initiatives that they're implementing across their departments. And we, questioned and made sure that we were staying within our performance standards.
That's excellent and a great idea. Every department probably should do a data mine every so often, at least, to track progress and to hold yourselves accountable, which it sounds like is very important to operations.
I think also, my focus also is as a leader to grow other leaders. And I think everyone needs to understand data, how we utilize data, how we hold ourselves accountable, the integrity across the data. But it gives others, so all staff was required to attend, not just the leader, the executive leadership, their supervisors, their managers, others within the departments were able to observe. And so they're learning, they're growing. So should they promote within the department, they're prepped and prepared, and they understand leadership. They understand how we measure ourselves and our accountability, how we set targets. And so there's various aspects to the program that are our objectives.
You somewhat have answered the question I was going to ask you next, which was, when you look at that huge team and multiple teams that operations oversees, what's your approach to keeping everyone focused on the student-centered mission and key goals that all of those teams are working toward?
I think it's important to have a vision and have a strategic strategy, and that everyone understands this is where we are and this is where we're going. And so I've had numerous retreats through the years with my staff so that it's clear. Is the mission, is it understandable? Do you understand your role within the mission? Are there supports? Because I think critical to my role is to ensure that my staff have the resources that are required for them to be successful.
I also want to ask about outside partnerships because operations works with so many partners outside of DPS to accomplish their goals, whether it's constructing a new school or asking the community to pass a nearly $1 billion bond. So you're working with community members. Talk about those relationships.
Oh my God, partnerships are critical to how we perform our work. I'll just start with construction. We partner with all of the various chambers, the women's chamber, the Black chamber, the Asian chamber, the Hispanic chamber. So all of the chambers across the district, small businesses, minority businesses, they're key to ensuring that, one, that we are helping them be successful out in the community and their prosperity. So many of our chambers, then we have all of our city organizations. The Denver Police Department is one of our partners. Denver Health is a partner within our Office of Operations. The Denver Water, Excel Energy, many grants that Excel Energy offers. And so we partner with many of our organizations, but I'll say we have partnerships within DPS.
Sure.
Our mental health department. I think many understand that kids are stressed today. And so we want to make sure that not only are these services being performed within DPS, but there's outreach to all of our critical functions across the city that can help us in supporting this work.
Well, and it goes back to what you said about how your teams are so tied in to what happens. So it's important for people who are in building construction even to understand kids' mental states these days and to design around that, as an example.
I like to use the cliche term that it takes a village. And I think many have heard of that, but it truly does. I truly believe that it takes a village. There's resources are limited, not just in the city, but at least resources are limited within DPS. And so how can we build and strengthen each other through that outreach and that partnership?
Yeah, and making sure every team member understands the shared goals.
Exactly. I mean, I serve on two different boards. I serve on the Denver Tennis Park board. We had a board meeting earlier today, and I also serve on the Denver Parks and Rec board.
Nice.
And those partnerships are critical as well.
So kind of toward wrapping things up, Trena, looking back from when you came to DPS in 1998, came from the private sector, from running a business, how has that maybe informed how you run a huge district today?
I'm going to say that informed how to run a huge district, but I've been very, very fortunate to have great leadership across the district. So from the time I started in 1998 until now, I mean, Dr. Marrero and his leadership and all of the constraints that he faces in managing a huge district, I have mentors across the district. I've had mentors throughout my career. I learned even from my staff. Yeah. And I think that's a key to performing. I think that's a key to growth. That's a key to leadership, is to be able to use other people's talents to grow your own. And I mentioned that, when I decide, in the future to ever, leave the district, I want to make sure that I've grown leaders, that I can look back and say that person is who they are and they have a strong leadership because of the support, the mentorship, and the leadership that I put into place.
Wow. Well, I want to thank you, Trena Marsal, DPS Chief of Operations, for joining us for this discussion. Again, so much of DPS 101 is about leadership. We may, in fact, start a 201 session of courses that I think would probably be most of your staff and your leaders that you've developed in all of those areas. We have one more episode this year, so I hope you'll join us for that next month. Thank you for listening.